Yeah, I mean, I think they need to find, some sort of niche features that appeal to people to convince them to come over to Google+. But in the long run, I think there's going to be more than one social network. So I don't think it's like a, one network owns everything type of scenario. I mean, that's just not the case. I think, most likely there will be one that's the biggest. Yeah, sometimes I think you have to be segmented to set yourself apart. So there are a lot of networks right now, social networks that cater to a smaller area of interest or a more narrow group of people. But that's exactly where the value proposition comes in. I mean, in fact, Facebook initially was unique because it was private, right? First, it was only for specific college campuses. Later, it opened up to all colleges and then high schools, and now it's open to everyone. But I think Facebook has actually lost some of the things that distinguished it initially. So at this point, it's actually becoming, sort of like everyone's on it, which almost makes it like less interesting. So I think there's, in fact, there's probably potential for a social network to come in and say, we're going to actually have, private groups. Well, what I'm saying is I think Facebook has kind of diluted its mission. So initially it was supposed to be exclusive, private, but I think that they were more motivated by increasing the number of page views and increasing the revenue. So they actually had to kind of open up the network. So they had to create new default privacy settings that were more open. So now if you look at most Facebook profiles, they'll actually expose a lot of the photos. I think it's actually done in a way where the profile owner isn't actually aware of that. And they've changed their privacy settings multiple times. And I'm not saying they're doing a bad thing. They've just had to do that because their number one metric is they want to increase the revenue and page views. And so they've actually diluted the core value of it. Yeah, I mean, my observation is that there's talented people everywhere, right? And so, bringing Silicon Valley innovation to other places in the world, I think is mostly a matter of importing the culture, right? So it's not that any other place lacks, like talented people. Certainly the infrastructure is here in Malaysia, there's no question about that. So I think it's more of a matter of importing like the cultural aspects, like are people willing to take risks? Is there like a personal network of people that you can look up to? It's a little bit difficult, for example, if there's no one that you can like aspire up to, right? You need role models, you need advisors, mentors. So I think what Malaysia needs to do is sort of build up this network of people, and I think that's the best way to transfer some of the Silicon Valley spark to this part of the world. Yeah, I think this is a great first step. I mean, this conference is only a couple days long. It's a great first step. Maybe the next step would be to bring people over for maybe 3 months, 6 months, or something like that, and to have people present here on a more continuous basis. Yeah, I mean, first of all, you need to identify a specific problem that you want to solve, and it should be something you're really passionate about, and it should also be something that you want to solve for yourself. It's difficult to predict what other people want, so it's easier to say, here's a specific issue that I want to solve, and I have an idea for how to do that. So initially, you could just, build it for yourself, show it to some friends, and see how they react. So I think those would be the first steps to deciding, what you want to do. And then once you get some good feedback, and once it turns out that your idea is useful, you just kind of take it from there. And I think the risk is reduced tremendously once you have some feedback and validation. So I've always been a fan of products that kind of market themselves. So at YouTube, for example, we didn't have any, marketing people or marketing experience. I think the most interesting products are the ones that are so inherently useful that they market themselves, and there's many examples of that. Whether it's eBay or Google or Twitter or Facebook, right? These are companies that, at least initially, didn't have any advertising budgets. The product was, sort of very straightforward, very clearly useful. And so, I've always been attracted to those types of companies. There's a bunch. I don't know if there's like one or two. One that I find very interesting is it's Airbnb, which has been a hugely successful company. And they've basically identified this marketplace where people can put up, their apartments or houses, and people who are traveling can, rent those places. And I think it's the perfect marketplace because it's more profitable for the owners to list their places on Airbnb rather than renting them out on a monthly basis, because they can charge for them on a daily basis. And for the travelers, the places end up being cheaper than hotels, and they get the sort of personal local experience at the same time. So it's kind of like this, I don't like the word synergy, but in this case, it does create that kind of marketplace where, it satisfies everyone's needs, and I think it's just fascinating.